everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to a Jayda InStitches live stream. We're going to get plushy today. I thought we'd revisit our old, not so old, but our donut, little donut pattern from, I think it was 2018 we did this. I've linked the original video tutorial in the description box down below. So if you want to see this little donut made with a size 4 medium weight yarn and a G6 hook, that's available for your viewing pleasure. But today I am going to make it a plushie. So I've got some nice size 6 super bulky weight plushie yarn here in my donut color, my frosting color, and my drizzle color. Got a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, some stitch markers, a little stuffing, and I'm still debating whether I'm going to use a 7mm hook or an 8mm hook. It's a little stuffy, so I want the stuffing to be tucked in nice and snug without it coming through the holes. So I don't know, still either oring the hook, but you can use whichever one is most comfortable with you, your tension and your yarn. So that's what we're up to today. I would just like to take a moment and thank Nico. Nico's been a member for 29 months. She says, hello InStitches family. She also gifted a membership. Thank you so much, Nico. Thank you times 2. And congratulations to Kay, who won it. And I'm so glad that so many of you are here. So let's, without further ado, jump into making some low-cal donuts. I'm going to put my stuffing to the side. May or may not need my stitch markers right off the bat. Actually, I might just keep one out. Scissor can go, so can the yarn needle. And I just need to focus on my donut color at the moment. Goodness me, Joanne, thank you so much for picking up today's sneaky sale pattern. And yes, it is our little donut pattern. The original donut pattern has 3 different toppings. So there's the donut pattern, the frosting pattern, and then instructions on how to add sprinkles like we did in the original tutorial. Just make a plain glazed donut, one of my favorites, and also how to add drizzle. And I'm going to try and do a drizzle donut today using the plushie yarn. So that is the plan. I think I'm going to go with my 8mm. I like the larger hook. And I don't want to be too tight with my tension, so I'm going to use the larger hook. Here we go. All donuts start the same. We're going to start with a slip knot on our hook. And we're going to chain 10. So we're kind of starting in the center of the donut. So there's 10 chains. Do not twist it. So do your best to keep it nice and flat. And we're going to chain, or I should say we're going to join to make a ring, but we're going to join with a single crochet. So right into that first chain we made, we're going to work 2 single crochet right off the bat. So we're joining to make it into a ring, but we're also working 2 single crochet into the same place. 2 single crochet. Now, I do recommend use of the stitch marker on the first stitch because especially when you're using plushie yarn, it's not always so easy to see where your stitches are. So using stitch markers to maintain that, visual connection to the beginning of your row really helps. Hi, Marie. Marie's been a member for 17 months. Thank you, Marie. Marie says, cute little ideas. Perfect for a rainy day in mid-Florida. Yes, it's kind of overcast and wishy-washy here as well. I love making plushy stuffed toys. I like to give a lot of these away at Halloween. So if you're ever wondering, okay, I like making amigurumi, but I don't know what to do with them, give them out at Halloween. They're quite popular, believe me. 2 single crochet into that first chain. We have a ring. We've put a stitch marker on the first chain. We're going to single crochet once into the next chain, and I'm going to try and grab the top loop. Doesn't matter, you can grab both if you want, but I'm just trying to try and grab the top loop for now. And into the remaining 8 chains, we're going to do a little repeating pattern. 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet. So into the next chain, I'm going to work 2 single crochet. I'm also working over top of that little short tail because why not? I just like to keep things kind of neat and tidy as I go. Just feel your way along. When you're making something with the plushie yarn, it isn't always so easy to see where all of your stitches are. This wants to twist on you. Like I think I may have just done that into the underside of one of the chains. So let me just take that out. Yeah, this is, oh, I did the second one into the wrong place. How do you like that? Okay, backing up. I don't want to change, I don't want anything to twist on me. So that's right, that's right, that's right. Let's do this. I'm going to use that chain. I will leave my short tail out to the back. Why not? Okay, so 2 into the first chain, 1 into the next chain, 2 into the next chain, 1, 2, and 1 into the next chain. And I'm doing my best to not twist that foundation row, but I will say this. Ultimately, it's not that big a deal if it twists on you. You just want to make sure that at the end of row 1, you have 15 stitches. So again, it's really helpful to have that stitch marker in place that marks out the first stitch of the row. And then you can kind of just focus on that little repeating pattern of 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet. And we should finish with 2 single crochet in the second last chain and 1 single crochet in the last chain. There we go. And you should have 15 single crochet all the way around. When you get back to your stitch marker, that stitch marker indicates the first stitch of the row. Welcome everybody. If you're just joining us, we are making a plushie, large plushie version of our little donuts. The original little donut pattern. We have a tutorial linked in the description box down below, and that pattern is on sneaky sale today in the Etsy shop. The link to the shop is in the top of the chat, and the link to the tutorial is in the description box. And thank you all for being here. So here we go. Row 2. We're going to continue to increase. So we're going to work directly into the next stitch. So we're not joining rows because we're working in the rounds. We don't want to join the rows with a slip stitch. We just want to keep working. The first stitch of row 2 is worked directly into the first stitch of what was row 1. So right into that stitch. 2 single crochet to start row 2. So 2 single crochet in the first stitch, and I'm going to bring my stitch marker back and put it on the first stitch of the row. I really want to keep track of that first stitch of the row. Hi Jojo. Jojo's been a member for 26 months. Thank you, Jojo. Jojo says, happy Monday, everyone. Hope you have a great day and week. Love the donuts. Me too. I could go for one right now. This one, however, won't sit around on your hips, so not unless you want to wear it. Row 2 begins with 2 single crochet in the first stitch, and we're going to single crochet once into each of the next 2 stitches. So a little simple increase pattern. I really recommend putting the stitch marker on the first stitch so you know where the first stitch of the row is, and then you just have to focus on the repeater. 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet. 2 single crochet, followed by 1 single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. So a little increase. We're going to go from 15 stitches at the end of row 1 up to 20 stitches at the end of row 2. Just a gradual little increase. We're kind of making a, well, we're literally making a donut shape. Right now it's sort of 2-dimensional. And using that big hook and the plushy weight yarn, you really want to feel your way along. You're looking for those next stitches to work into. Aim for the correct stitch count. When you're working with plush yarn, it's not as easy to see your stitches, but it's also not as easy to see any mistakes. So there's that as well. It all balances out. And that is the end of row 2. 20 stitches at the end of row 2. We're going to continue to increase for row 3. So handy little stitch marker. Row 3 starts in what was the first stitch of row 2. 2 single crochet into that stitch, and I highly recommend the stitch marker. Bring it back, put it back on the first stitch of the row. So that is the first stitch of row 3. And 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. Pretty easy to remember. And then we repeat that all the way around. Back to the stitch marker, 2 single crochet in the next stitch. 1 single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. Just a simple little increase pattern. We're going to be up to 25 stitches at the end of row 3. And just so I make sure I'm not missing anything in the chat, I don't know about you, but I feel like the live chat looks a little funny today. I saw a couple of you mention that you can see your handle, like your username, as opposed to just your name, like the kind of the I would call it the public facing name, as this, instead you're looking at your handle. That's how oddly I've seen the comments on, if I look at the comments on the channel, I've been seeing the handle and not the actual like name for a couple years now. I don't know why YouTube did that, but now I think we're all seeing it. Instead of the actual name, I'm just seeing your handle. And I know somebody else mentioned that too. It's a bit funny, and I will say this, just before we got the live stream going today, it said that the chat was currently unavailable, and now it is. So I have a feeling YouTube is making some more updates. Heaven knows why, but and maybe what else it's going to mess up. But that's where we're at. So if you can see just the handles, it's everything starts with an @ sign, then that's, you're not crazy. That's apparently what we're looking at here. So 2 single crochet in the same stitch, followed by 1 single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. That finishes off row 3, and that is 25 stitches all the way around. Rows 4 through 6, so 4, 5, and 6, 3 solid rows of just straight single crochet. I am going to continue to keep my stitch marker on the first stitch of the row. It will help me keep track of how many times I've gone around. So I've started row 4, no stitch count change in row 4, row 5, or row 6. It will be 25 stitches per row. We're just single crocheting in each stitch all the way around. So just feel your way around. I'm going to get my big ball of yarn here, give myself a little bit of slack. I really love the feel of this yarn. It's fun to work with. Once you get sort of used to knowing where to kind of feel for the stitch, it's actually quite a lot of fun to work with. I do recommend, if you're going to make, like if you're new to the whole world of amigurumi, you're making little stuffed toys and maybe using the plush yarn, I recommend using a hook and yarn that you're more familiar with. So if you kind of are more familiar with using a size 4 medium weight non-fluffy yarn and a regular hook, I would make the pattern using that first. Of course, it's going to be smaller, but at least it gets you familiar with the pattern and kind of knowing how it's supposed to look and how the shape is supposed to develop underneath your fingers, and then give it a whirl with the plushy yarn if you're new to the world of plushy, thick, super bulky weight yarn. I recommend that so that you have fewer frustrating moments when you're working on making a bigger version of it, just using the bigger hook and the bigger yarn. But just a few little practice stuffed toys, and you'll be very comfortable using this stuff. I like it. I'm really happy that they started making this. I know they originally thought, hey, this will be nice for blankets, and the crochet world was like, nah, making stuffed toys. So I'm glad that they keep making it, because it really does make fun little toys. Yeah, so you're all seeing it. Okay, so for some reason now they've decided that rather than showing just the regular username in the chat, they want you to see the handle. I have no idea why they've done that, but that's how I've been seeing the comments on our channel for years now. So if I reply to you and your username is like, you know, X75 I have no idea what your name is. So if I say, hi, X75 I, that's why, because I see your handle and I don't see your name. All right, that was the end of row 5. I got one more row of single crochet left to go. I'm going to keep that stitch marker on the first stitch of the row. YouTube is constantly changing stuff. I have no idea why, but there you go. So a little more single crochet in every stitch all the way around. I'm still going to have 25 stitches at the end of row 6. No increasing, no decreasing. We will actually start to decrease for row 7. And then we will turn it into a magical little donut. This is such a fun little pattern. And once I found, I made several of them when I first made the pattern because I couldn't stop. Donuts are fun. They're cute and they're fun to decorate. So this is just, I don't know, it's one of those little things. I often, I have a donut that I use as a keychain that I made, I think is really cute. And most of the donuts have kind of gone to people as little gifts over the years because they're cute. They kind of bring a smile to your face. Who doesn't like a little donut? All right, that's the end of row 6. I'm back to my stitch marker. Time to start row 7, and we are going to begin to decrease now. So here we go. We're going to use a single crochet 2 stitches together. The first 2 rows are going to be single crochet 2 stitches together. I'm going to do that thing where you grab the front facing loops of the next 2 stitches on your hook and then single crochet as normal. I like that for this little pattern, but you can single crochet 2 stitches together in any way that you're comfortable. We're going to single crochet as normal into the next 3 stitches. And then we're going to decrease again. Let me give myself a little bit of slack here. Single crochet 2 stitches together. I'm going to get the front facing loops of each of the next 2 stitches on my hook. Pick up a loop in those and single crochet in the next 3 stitches as normal. Single crochet 2 stitches together, grabbing those 2 front facing loops, there we go, and single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. And again. And a regular single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. And one last time. A decrease. Come here, you. There we go. And single crochet into the last 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. And once again, if you're just joining us, the original tutorial is linked in the description box down below. So if you feel like you'd be able to see what I'm doing a little easier with a regular weight yarn and a smaller hook, that video is for your viewing pleasure attached below. But this is fun, trying it in the plushy yarn. For row 8, we're going to continue to decrease. So I'm going to start with a single crochet 2 stitches together. This begins row 8. I'm going to put my stitch marker back on what is now the first stitch of row 8 and single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. And repeat. Single crochet 2 stitches together. Just want to grab that front facing loop. There it is. And here's the next one. Single crochet 2 stitches together and single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So I'm repeating that all the way around. You can sort of see this hollow ball shape is starting here. Single crochet 2 stitches together. Yeah, I agree, Caroline. I think Google is constantly trying to appear fresh and innovative, and really what they just keep doing is confusing us all. Single crochet 2 stitches together and single crochet into the last 2 stitches of the row. So at the end of row 8, which we're at now, we are down to 15 stitches. We've got one more row of decreasing left to go. We're going to single crochet 2 stitches together to start row 9. Come here, you. Grabbing the front facing loops of those 2 stitches and single crochet. I'm going to put my stitch marker back in place so I know where I'm at. Single crochet into the next stitch and repeat. Single crochet 2 stitches together, single crochet into the next stitch, and I'm going to repeat that around. Single crochet 2 stitches together. Come here, you. Single crochet into the next stitch. Single crochet 2 stitches together, single crochet into the next stitch, and one more. I've got 3 stitches left, so I'm going to single crochet 2 of them together. There we go. And single crochet into the last stitch. That ends row 9. And now I'm going to leave a long tail for sewing. So I don't know. How long is long? Maybe 24 inches or 60 centimeters, something like that. So I'm just going to do that. And then look at this. You push those 2 open rings together, and even without stuffing, you've already got this chubby little donut. Oh my gosh, I want to eat this. It's so cute. All right, stitch marker can come off. I'm going to put it back to the side now. And we are going to turn this into a donut right off the bat. So I'm going to get our stuffing ready. I've got leftover yarn scraps. I've got some fabric here. I've even got some appliques that I'm not terribly fond of. Nothing goes to waste in this craft room. All right, let's see here. Let's get some of that fabric out. I've got fabric in here. I like using fabric. Got scraps of fabric. That's a good one. I've got polar fleece ends. So when I'm sewing, I will cut the selvage off of the edge of the polar fleece or whatever I'm working on, and that usually goes into the scrap basket. So here we go. I'm going to thread up the long tail in my yarn needle, and we're going to turn this into a donut and stuff at the same time. Hello, Victoria. Thank you so much for gifting a membership. What a sweet thing to do, and welcome back to Thea. Thea has won it. Congratulations, Thea. Thank you so much, Victoria. Really appreciate it. We do not have to flip this inside out. You should be looking at the outside of your donut, but you do want to match up those rings on the inside. So here we go. You're going to take your needle and you're going to hold, I like to go like right through the center and find, I'm going to try and line this up so that my two sort of rings are roughly opposite each other. I'm going to take my needle and go through the foundation chain opposite that last stitch I made and then go back through that last stitch. So just to start, let's do this. And then we're going to go any direction you want through the next one and through the next stitch, and just get those two kind of going. If it helps, you can go through here, kind of look through the opposite and then flip it out the other side to make sure you're not missing anything. So I'm going to turn it so I'm looking at both edges. Here's one edge and here's the other edge. So let me just do a couple of stitches and then I'm going to flip it the other way just to make sure that I'm not missing anything. So we're cinching up the inside. Oh, it's so plushy and soft. Okay, so I'm trying to work kind of from one side. There you go. Maybe that's a little easier to see. There's the front, there's the back. I've got them kind of pushed together. So I like to do a couple of stitches. You're going to have 10 sets all the way around because we had 10 foundation chains and we're down to 10 stitches at the end of row 9. So you're basically pairing up those stitches. You want to sew a few. Get a few of them sort of sewn together. You can put in extra stitches if you wind up with extra stitches. That's not a big deal. You're just sewing up that edge. But what we don't want to do is sew the whole thing together before we start putting in any stuffing. So maybe sew up half. And then while you still have an opening in there, let's start with some of this lightweight fabric. You're going to tuck it inside and aim for the area that you've already sewn up. So a lot of that is just sort of tucking it in with your finger and tucking it into that already sewn up area. So let me just see if I can, because of this being a plushie, it's kind of hard to see. So you can see I kind of tucked that fabric into the hole there, and I'm stuffing it backwards into the area that's already been sewn shut. And I've got to put a lot in there because this is a plushy little donut, and you can go from either side. You know, the hole has two sides right now. So you just tuck it in from either side. You don't want to overstuff, just like anything, and you don't want to understuff. You don't want to see your stuffing through your stitches, but you also don't want it to be too squishy. Thank you, Charlie. Yes, it's Canada Day tomorrow. I think everything is closed tomorrow, and there will be various celebrations going on. I think, you know, most towns have a little something. Our neighbors put on, like, you know, they fire off some fireworks and stuff. It's kind of a, I mean, I appreciate the holiday. Who doesn't like a day off? But the thing with it being, it's always, Canada Day is July 2nd. Or I'm sorry, July 1st. And because July 1st is like, can happen any day of the week, it's always that day, so that you don't necessarily get a long weekend. You just get that day off, and it's like, all right. Everything's closed except, you know, the whatever little party's happening. So it's lovely to have a day off, especially in the summer. But when it happens in the middle of the week, it feels kind of awkward. I'd just prefer it if they were like, hey, you know what? It's just, this is close enough. Let's have a long weekend. All right, I'm still stuffing this all the way back. And it feels like feels like I've got, so the area that I've already sewn up feels like it's starting to get nice and stuffed. I take my time with this little part because I want it to be evenly stuffed all the way around the donut. As I stuff it, you can start to see that shape really appearing. There we go. So once you get that whole area that you've already sort of sewn up kind of stuffed, you can sew up a few more stitches, and you're just going to keep sort of stuffing and sewing and stopping and sewing as you go. So that's my little short tail where I started with. So my last stitch came out of here. So I'm going to keep going in the same direction. Let's see. Here's a stitch and here's a stitch. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to bring my needle back through here. And my next stitch is right here. And I'm going to try and get the one opposite. So you see what I'm doing? I'm kind of making sure now that I don't want any gaps. So like I said, if you end up using the same stitch a couple times to sew through the same, like what I mean is if you end up sewing through the same area a couple times, that's okay. It's better you do that and don't have any gaps. So if I end up doing it through the same place, and I might even do that if I feel like one of my foundation chains is a little loose, then I'll sew through it twice. Why not? But I'm gonna work my way about another third, say, of the way around my donut, around the inside, and then I'll do one more set, and then I'm going to do a little bit more sewing, or stuffing, I should say. So let's get this one in there. That's a nice big piece. Nico! Nico has gifted another membership. Thank you so much, Nico. Congratulations to Charlie. Charlie has won it. Congratulations, Charlie. Thank you, Nico. Yes, and at the end of the week, it is Independence Day in the US. So we've got, this week is the first week of July, is always kind of celebratory in the northwestern hemisphere, because most people in Canada have got family and friends on the other side of the border. So I think a lot of us celebrate both Canada Day and Independence Day. That's been my experience growing up. And in fact, it's been increasing, I think probably because there's just more sort of back and forth across the border. And I don't know. I assume, like, I have my friends and family in the U.S. often kind of have a little cake or something on Canada Day. I mean, it's summer, right? It's July, so any excuse to have a little bit of a barbecue or a party. So I'm just gonna keep stuffing. If you get to a point where you feel like you can stuff the rest of your donut and then stitch it up, you can do that, or you can continue to stuff and sew and stuff and sew as you go. There's no real rule here. You just want to get yourself a nice, evenly stuffed donut. And I just keep feeling it and squeezing it and stuffing it. So I know, like, I need to have a bunch of stuffing in here. And I think I might just stuff that whole area up before I sew it shut. So let's do that. This feels a little too stiff, so I will use some more leftover yarn. Let's see here. There's some leftover yarn. That's kind of a strange thing. I'll stuff that in there. Sometimes I try something, like I try a shape with some yarn and I try it over and over and over again, and then the yarn gets pretty gnarly and I'm like, well, I don't want to actually use that yarn now for anything, so it just goes into the scrap pile. Nothing gets wasted. Let's see what else we've got here. There's a little bit more yarn. And I'll take that. There's a random leaf that I don't want any longer. I'll stuff that in there. Piece of cheese. Crochet cheese, of course. Exactly, Caroline. Any excuse for a party. Especially outside. I mean, the weather is generally nice in July, so you know, you want to be outside, especially when, you know, you live in the more northern part of the Western Hemisphere and we get so much winter. And I complain so much about the cold. The older I get, the more I feel it. And I really don't want to complain when the weather gets hot. So I'm happy. I'm happy to be outside enjoying that beautiful sunshine and all that warm weather. So I will celebrate both. Why not? I can be an honorary American for a day. Okay, a little bit more, I think. A little bit more. Let's see here. I will use this. That feels like I could stuff that right in there. Sometimes small little crocheted shapes actually make good stuffing because they're not little bits. They're like kind of a solid piece, and they're nice to just fold into an area. There, that feels pretty good and squishy. Okay, so I want to come through here, and I want to finish sewing up so you can see my little gap in there. I want to finish sewing that up. So I'm not going to grab my stuffing. I'm going to get the edge stitches. It's a foundation chain. This goes back through the center. Foundation chain here. There we go. And all the way across to the stitch on the corresponding side of the last row. It's a little easier to see now that it's stuffed. And you can go around again if you want to make sure that everything is really tight and there's no gaps or anything. If you sort of feel your way around and you feel like, oh, there's a gap there or something, you can go back and do a little bit more stitching. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, I might go backwards a couple ways. That's another thing about this plushy yarn. You're not going to see the stitches. So if you've got a lot of sewing tail left over, why not go back over some of your current sewing stitches and just make that seam nice and snug. There won't be any little bits of stuffing showing through. I might just go all the way back around. Why not? All right, so I think that's good enough. You can make a knot somewhere on the inside of your donut. Just grab any old loop there. Make a knot, fasten off. Try to make that as tight as possible. There we go. And then take that yarn and pull it into your donut, because it can become stuffing. Just wiggle it in. This might take a little minute or two, but that's okay as well. The more stuffing, the better. There we go. So I'm just sort of grabbing the yarn from different angles here. The other way, of course, is that you just thread it back up and pull it down through the same hole and just go out another direction and keep going in that area. I do this until the whole thing disappears because I like the idea that it's not going to unravel and that it kind of operates as a little extra bit of stuffing. Plus it's the same color as the donut, so that's nice. Well, Charlie, I'm glad you're still here, even if you've lost your Crojo. I was just sort of having this chat with a couple of other people actually recently. I think, one, it's the summer. We've got so many other things to do in the nice weather. You know, crocheting with fluffy yarn isn't necessarily top of our list. Your Crojo ebbs and flows like the ocean, you know. Ocean never leaves. But the tide comes and goes, and so does, the time you have for your hobbies, the interest you have in your hobbies. It comes and it goes. Finding inspiration is often a big part of it. Like if you have no reason to crochet, like you've got nothing coming up that's a deadline, maybe you're deadline oriented. Like if you're like me, You perform well under pressure. So if there's a deadline coming, you come up with something. You kind of find, you dig deep and you find the crojo, you know what I mean? If you have to make something. Otherwise, if there's no real looming deadline, I find it difficult to get inspired sometimes. Other times, like today, I was like, I just want to make donuts. And I want to make a plushy donut. And I thought if this turns out and looks really cute, I might just make a whole little set and they'll go into my Make Ahead Halloween stash because I like to be able to give out little stuffed toys at Halloween. Not that I've got anything against candy. It's just that if there's candy in the house, we'll eat it. So why not? Why not give away little stuffed toys? And it's kind of fun. We get a lot of little children, like really, really little kids, and I'd rather they have like a little stuffed toy. I think that just makes me happy. I used to do that for when our neighbors' little kids were growing up. I started giving them little stuffed toys and little baggies that I'd made full of things, and somebody did that for me once when I was little, and I never forgot it, so that's why I like to do it myself. Okay, we've got a donut. You could end right here. This looks like that plain donut. I love it. A nice stuffed little plushie of a donut. How big is this donut? It is 12.5 centimeters, almost 5 inches in diameter. That's a nice size for a donut. Crunch. And I think we need to put some frosting on it now. So let's go. I think we've got time for some frosting, a basic glaze. I'm going to use pink because I love a pink glazed donut. That just looks so pretty to me. So here's my pink yarn. I'm going to put my donut to the side. Let's put these guys off to the side. Same hook. I don't want to change my hook at all. I want to start the same way I did for the donut. So the first 3 rows of the frosting are the same as the donut. So I'm going to start with a slip knot. I'm going to chain 10. Be careful not to twist it. And it's the same first 3 rows as the donut. So we single crochet twice into that first chain. That gives us not only the ring, but starts row 1. Come here, you. Let me start that again. Do not twist. Find the first chain, single crochet twice into it. There we go. 1 and 2. 2 single crochet in the same place. Grab my stitch marker and I put the stitch marker on the first of those 2 stitches because that's the first stitch of row 1. Single crochet into the next chain. And I'm trying to grab that top loop and I'm trying not to twist my foundation chain. And repeat. 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet, all the way around, just like row 1 of the donut. Charlie's going to be a grandma. Well, then that is plenty of reason to get crocheting. Hey, like I said, it's the summer. Sometimes you don't want to, think about warm things. We do spend so much time, certainly in this country, we spend so much time thinking about being warm. It's nice to think about being cool for a change. I like to switch it up in the summer and make stuff for the garden or make lots of things for the home, like lots of pretty doilies and table runners and shelf protectors and stuff like that. At the end of row 1 of the frosting, you'll have 15 single crochet. And again, that pattern is 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet, all the way around. We don't join the rows. We're still working in the round. Row 2, we're going to work into the first stitch of what was row 1. 2 single crochet to begin the row. Stitch marker goes in on the first stitch to maintain that first stitch of the row thing. 2 single crochet once into each of the next 2 stitches, and then repeat that little repeater. 2 single crochet in the next stitch. Single crochet once into each of the next 2. 2 single crochet. 1 single crochet into each of the next 2. 2 single crochet. 1 single crochet into each of the next 2, and one more time. 2 single crochet into each of the next 2. So at the end of row 2, you're up to 20 stitches. Row 3 is still the same as the donut. We start with 2 single crochet in the first stitch. Stitch marker goes back in on stitch number 1. And then we single crochet once in each of the next 3 stitches. Two single crochet in the next stitch, single crochet in each of the next 3, two single crochet in the next stitch, and single crochet in each of the last 3 stitches. So that's where the frosting similarities to the donut end. So at the end of row 3, you've got 25 stitches, and now we want to make it look like it's kind of dripping down the side of the, so if you, it'll sit like this, so that round thing will kind of sit down towards the middle of the donut, and we want that frosting to kind of drip down the sides. So here we go. Row 4, final row for the frosting. We're going to slip stitch into the next stitch. And I'm going to mark that stitch with my stitch marker. So that's a slip stitch to begin the row. Single crochet into the next stitch. And into the next stitch, we're going to do 3 stitches. Half double crochet, half double crochet. All into the same stitch. So half double crochet, half double crochet. All into the same stitch. And then single crochet, slip stitch. And then we repeat. Slip stitch into the next stitch, single crochet, half, double, half, single, slip. And again, slip stitch into the next stitch, single crochet into the next stitch, half, double, half, and by half I mean a half double crochet, all into the same place. So half double crochet, half double crochet in the same stitch, single crochet, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet into the same place, half double crochet into the same place, single, and slip. Once again, the original tutorial has this pattern included in it as well. That's linked in the description box down below because I like to put frosting on all of my donuts. And one more time, slip, single, half double crochet into the same place, double crochet, half double crochet, single crochet into the next stitch, and slip stitch to finish the row. That brings you right back to where your stitch marker is. You've got 5 little drips, so to speak, and that's it. You want to leave a long tail for sewing, like 42 inches, 100 centimeters, I don't know, 3 feet, something around there. Like, you want to make sure you've got enough because you're going to sew it down not only around the outside edge, but also around the inside edge as well. So stitch marker can leave. At this point, I like to weave that short tail in on the underside of the frosting. Doesn't have to be like really well done. A little bit of tail sticking out is fine, but there's your frosting. And it's going to drape itself over top of the donut. You want to kind of line up that inner chained area with the inside hole of the donut. So you line up your centers, and if you feel like you need to, you can kind of pin it into place, but I usually just sort of hold it. This stuff is pretty kind of flexible, so as long as you don't kind of like let the center leave, like you can even just sort of keep your fingers in there. I sew all the way around this edge to kind of sew the top edge of the frosting down to the donut, and then I bring it in through the donut and I stitch around the centerpiece. So like I do everything, I'm just going to hold it in place, do a couple of little sewing stitches, and make sure it hasn't moved. And I'm going to try and grab the loop of a donut stitch that sits pretty much directly beneath the loop or the side edge of the frosting. All right, so I'm going to make sure nothing's moved. Yep. I'm going to just keep a nice firm grip on it. I've got my thumb in there. Holding it is actually kind of a nice way to sort of keep control of it. And I'm just going to keep working my way around. Like I said, this is nice and flexible, so don't fret. Don't stress it. This is a fun little toy. As long as you get the right look, the right sort of shape, it will continue to look like a donut. Now, why am I getting little knots? Come out of here. There you go. No need for knots. There we go. And I'm going to just continue to try and find the stitch of a donut that's pretty much directly below where I want to sew my frosting. Veem is asking if I like mangoes. I love mangoes. I have some frozen mango in the freezer right now. I've been trying to live a little healthier lately and make some smoothies for breakfast as opposed to just toast or eggs. I do love toast and eggs, but it's good to change it up. And Victoria's asking how Penny's doing. Penny's doing fine. Mr. InStitches is fine too. He's with her. She's very demanding. So when we live stream, she wonders why I'm in here talking, and she gets kind of like fretful. So Mr. InStitches has to keep her busy. Becky says she's in slow gear. Becky, don't worry about it. The whole point of making something like this is to enjoy the process, maybe use up some scrap yarn. I wanted to try this in a plushy weight today because I have been wanting to do this since I made the first donut. I love the big, ridiculous things. I love super tiny. Thank you. HR Cole, thank you so much for picking up the pattern. Really much appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, today's donut pattern is written up. It's in the shop. It's on sneaky sale. If you haven't picked it up already, then please feel free to do so. We really appreciate the support. It goes a long way here. I'm still working my way around the frosting. I like, see, look at this. It looks like it's sort of dripping down the edge. Looks good enough to eat. This is a strawberry. A few years ago now, Tim Hortons often comes out with like specialty donuts just for like a limited time. They came out with some kind of strawberry shortcake or strawberry cheesecake stuffed donut thing. I couldn't get enough. I like a good donut once in a while. I wouldn't say I'm obsessed with eating donuts, but I do enjoy them once in a blue moon. I couldn't get enough of this donut. I don't know how many times I went and bought it, but it was probably an embarrassing number of times. And this is making me think of that donut. Maria, thank you. Thank you so much for picking up the pattern. The pattern does include how to make the frosting in the donut and 3 different ways to top it. So if you want sprinkles or drizzle, or just a plain donut or the frosting, there's 4 ways really that you can make this little donut, because there are an infinite number of donut flavors out there. So now I'm gonna have to have donuts. Maybe I'll make some. I've never made any. I've never made bagels or donuts. I love to bake, but they require frying in oil, and I don't typically have that kind of oil around, and I'm always sort of hesitant to fry anything. I don't think I have a deep enough pot. That's something I'd like to do outside, I think. Has anybody here done that? Has anybody actually made like cake dough, like flour, like bread dough, sweet bread dough, and made donuts like by frying them in oil? Anybody done that? getting my way all the way around. And of course, keeping my hand on it really does help keep those holes aligned in the middle. So that really helps. This is I think this is easier to sew together than the small one for that purpose, because there's lots of room for me to keep my thumb in that hole. And it looks like I'm all the way back to the beginning again. That was quick. So once you get all the way back to the beginning, you want to bring your needle all the way through to the center of the donut. So right in that middle area, nice and sort of easy does it. Don't pull too tightly because you don't want to like cinch your donut. But then you want to really push that inner edge down into the middle of the donut, and you're going to sew the inner 10 stitches to the inside of the donut. And I like to try and anchor it in the lower middle. So if you think of the middle of the donut where you had the top come and the bottom come up to meet it, I want to try and grab just a little bit lower. And then I come back out. So up through the middle, but up through a stitch of the frosting. And then I'm going to come back down here, pull it nice and snug, grab a needle or grab a donut stitch going through the center. And I'm trying to grab them kind of in the middle, but I'm also pulling taut as I go, because I want that frosting to be, I want that hole to be visible. I don't want to obliterate the hole by not making my stitching snug enough. So I'm just working my way around. And now I think I can kind of eyeball it. I'm just going to grab that just one little loop at a time. And once you think you're all the way around, just feel your way around. If there's anything loose in there that you feel like needs to be kind of sewn down, then go ahead and add a couple of extra stitches. Like I think I want to do this area once more. There we go. And all right, so that's good enough. I'm going to bring my sewing yarn out here. I'm going to make a little knot on on a loop on the inside edge of my frosting. Make a knot. Make it as tight as possible and pull it into the donut. So not just underneath the frosting, right into the donut, and same thing. So pull it out about here. Didn't need all that tail, but it's better to have too much than not enough. And now I'm going to take some time and wiggle this in and try to bury it inside the donut. Once again, it makes extra stuffing. And if I have to, I will thread it back up and bring it out somewhere else. Might be easier over here, for example. There we go. Maria's using one of the totally Tunisian stitches to make an ear warmer. Lovely, that'll be very cozy. Tunisian stitch work is mostly very warm. It's kind of like knitting, so there's you can make it really lacy, but most of those stitches are nice and solid. Solid's a good word. Come here, tail. There we go. All right, let's try this again. I'm going to push it over here. Obviously, you don't have to do as much of this weaving in as I am doing. If you get frustrated or you feel like it's fat enough, you can just trim whatever's left. But I just like, I like the feeling that I've tucked every last little tail in and that nothing has gone to waste. And I figure, well, I mean, it would turn into stuffing eventually anyway, these little odds and ends. So I may as well just stuff it all into this current project. There we go. It's also kind of satisfying to watch it all wiggle in finally. There we go. All done. So here is my pink frosted fluffy donut. I love it. Give it a little squish. And make sure that hole is nice and obvious. Yeah, so this feels nice. Okay, good. Make sure I don't have any stuffing poking through anywhere. Good. All right. It is now 1 hour since we got going. I think, shall I call it there? The frosting, I was going to add a little bit of drizzle, you know, when they do that sort of drizzle thing on top. And I think I'm going to have to. So if you can bear with me another few minutes while I add a little bit of drizzle to the top of my donut, because I just love the way that looks. Yum, yum, yum. So I'm going to cut myself a long tail, not super long, but in the drizzle color that I want. So this white yarn, gonna cut a little bit. Let's see how I go. Because what I want to do is I want to kind of drape it over back and forth a few times and then into the middle, and then also pin it down or stay stitch it using the same yarn. So for example, I really like the way this looks on this half. So I'm going to bring my needle in underneath the frosting over here on the edge and leave it out here because I'm probably, actually, you know what, maybe a little further away, because I'm going to leave a tail out for sewing, or knotting I should say later. So I'm just going to leave a little tail out. Here we go. I'm going to drape it just so it kind of goes to the edge of the frosting. So I'm going to go over here. I really want this to look like it's drizzled. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to do a drizzle, a drizzle, a drizzle. So 1, 2, and then bout to the middle. I hope you guys can all sort of see what I'm doing. And I'm going to come back in underneath the, so I may as well pull it right through the middle actually. Try not to shuffle this around. I want to kind of keep it loosey-goosey. Nico, our gifting ninja, sent another membership. Thank you, Nico. And Kristen has won it. Congratulations, Kristen. Welcome back to the family. Thank you, Nico. Okay, so I'm going to kind of try and keep this from falling off. I want to flip it over, get my needle in underneath the lip of the frosting, and pull this, not so that I lose that drippage, drizzle. I'm going to just go over top of that drizzle. So I'm going to take my needle, go over top of that little thing and back through the same hole. I'm going to come out over here. So I'm kind of running underneath the frosting. And every time I do this, I'm going to try very carefully not to pull too tightly. What I want to do is just create little tiny stay stitches. So this is easier to see. I bring it out underneath sort of the long edge of the drizzle through a stitch, hop over top of it, go back through the same place, and then decide where I'm going to bring it out the next time. So this one I'm going to bring out just under the edge of the frosting over here. I want to create little tiny knot tight stay stitches so that my drizzle still looks like it's drizzled. So again, I'm right underneath the edge of the frosting. I'm going to grab that little loop, go back through the same place, and maybe out over here. I am not pulling tightly. I'm trying to be very careful not to pinch the drizzle or pull it into the inside of the frosting. So there we go. Nice and easy does it. So I'm going to pull this a little snugger, but not too. Okay, that's nice and snug. Make sure that I haven't messed up my drizzle too much. This is sort of more the art and not the science part of decorating a donut. I'm going to jump over top through the same place and come back out a little way over here. And I'm just going to kind of keep making these little stay stitches. Making sure they're not too obvious, but you know, there. That's starting to look like it's drizzled, eh? All right, so that's where I want it. I'm going to go over and back to the same place, and then I'm going to come out. Where do I want that? I want that right here at the edge of my frosting, so between the frosting and the donut. And not too tight. And then under the drizzle, back through the same place, and I'm going to stay it over here, maybe up a little bit. Yeah. So I can pull it back a little bit. And I want this over here, so I'm going to go over and back under. And let's see, that might be my last, oh no, I think I want to, is it going to stay there? It might stay there. Okay, so this is probably my last stay stitch on this side. Then I'm going to bring my whole yarn over here. So through the donut, so through the same spot, I'm going to come out on the other side of the hole now. All right, before I go any further, let's make this look drizzly. Yeah, that's starting to look kind of cakey. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to sort of figure out how much drizzle I want on this side. You know what? I'm going to bring that out down here instead. Like I said, this is the art and not so much the science of decorating a donut. There we go. I kind of want the drizzle to look like it skipped the hole and then continued on the other side. And same thing. I will kind of drizzle it a couple times over here. I think that's basically where I want it to end. I'm going to do this and stay stitch it in a couple of spots. And now my yarn is getting smaller, so I got to be a little more careful that I don't pull it too tightly. And I can also, this is a little bit time intensive, but if you feel like you've got a little too much over here, I'm going to grab another yarn needle. You can pull up on some of these little stay stitches to give yourself a little more slack. So for example, I can give this a little bit more slack, pulling it all the way through my thing. These are my first stay stitches, so I pull up on this to give myself and then you kind of have to go in the order that you did them. And easy does it. There we go. And then this one. This is all just to give myself a little more slack on the other side. And that one. Then I want to pull this one. All right, there. So still nice and drizzly. That gives me a little more. I can tighten up on that a little bit. There we go. So that should do it. So I'm just going to quickly add some stay stitches to this little bit of frosting, or drizzle, I suppose. I'm on the drizzle stage. And then, with any luck, I'll have just enough yarn left that I can pull it out and knot those two ends together. And if I have to, I will bring the other end in somewhere to meet it. So this is just to avoid having to. I wonder if I should do that one. You know what? I will do that one right at the edge. It's finicky, but somehow there's something about the finicky part that I kind of like. I guess because I'm trying not to be a perfectionist here, but I really like the, yeah, there we go. Let's go one more over here. Mm-hmm. And I should have enough to do one over here. Yep, getting close to the edge. All right, so I've got yarn over here, I've got yarn over here, and I want these two ends to meet somehow. So I'm gonna find, I guess I'm gonna pull them right into the middle. So this one's gonna go down here. So there's my drizzle. And I think I've got enough slack that I can pull on this one and this one and this one. There we go. And I can take this right through. So I'm going to thread up this end, go right through the same hole. And I'm going to come out, I'm going to weave it around and try to come out through the same place. So if I have to move it, I'm moving it through to this hole and then back out through that into the same hole, because I want these two ends to come out through the same hole. So I can knot them together and pull the knot into the donut, and you won't see the knot. So there, I'm just pulling this out here. So I just did it. There's just enough to make an itty bitty little knot. So I'm going to tie that as tightly as I can twice. There we go. Tuck that back into the inside through the same hole that I pulled it out. There we go. Okay, so knot disappears. It's not showing anywhere. Let's make sure that stuffing is all in there. Good, good, good. And I've got drizzle anchored to the top of my donut. Boy, that looks tasty. Yummy, yummy. There you go. That is adding drizzle to the donut. Thank you, Melinda, for picking up a pattern. Once again, our little donut pattern is on sneaky sale today. So if you haven't already had it, because we did make this originally in 2018, please feel free to pick it up. And that's how you make a plushy version. I'm going to include some plushy notes in the description box of today's live stream. The original tutorial is linked in the description box down below. So if you want to see how this is made with sprinkles, or if you just want to see it done with a smaller hook and lighter weight, a medium weight yarn, then you can see that too. So all there for your viewing pleasure. And now, of course, I've got this nice plushy, yummy looking donut. I'm going to make a few more of these probably over the course of the next few months and flush out my my make-ahead stash for Halloween, because I think I'm going to be giving out little sweets this year. Little crocheted sweets as opposed to actual candy, little toys and whatnot. But I think I like the irony of that. It's a sweet, but it's it's a toy. And that's that. Thank you guys for joining us today as I made a plushy donut. I hope if you make one along with me or if you make one later, please feel free to send us photos at the Etsy shop. I love to see what you guys make with our patterns. And I like being able to share them too in the posts tab. I will be posting a picture of this a little later on, and look forward to a week of June unblanket pictures from the crafty community. It's already unblanket week, so our calendar unblanket July video will be this Friday. Lots happening here this week, so I will have lovely photo roundups of everybody's June and others. I know they're all kind of trickling in. Don't feel like there's a time limit. If I get your January this week, because you hadn't sent it in to me before, I'll be happy to share it. Not everybody moves at the same pace. That's the whole point of a calendar blanket. You can, keep up, or you can just do it at your leisure. You can even come back a couple years from now and do it. But I love being able to share everybody's different unblankets because the months do not all have the same thing happening in them for all of us. June doesn't look like June the same. June isn't the same all the way around the world is my point. So please send in your unblankets, doesn't matter what month it is, and I will be happy to share them all this week leading up to our Friday, July video. Yeah, the sneaky sale for the donut pattern will be on today and tomorrow. So if you are here today or tomorrow, happy Canada Day. And if you're making donuts on Canada Day, feel free to pick up the pattern on sale. And we'll see you Friday, which is Independence Day. So a big week of celebrations. If you're barbecuing or traveling or playing with fireworks, please be careful. Safety first. Nobody wants to be and wind up in the ER on the first week of July. And thank you so much for having the time to spend with me and make some plushies. Have a wonderful weekdays. Have a great week, guys. Obviously, I need another cup of coffee. Stay safe and crafty, and we'll see you